Wisconsin has become known as the dairy capital of the United States, and from about 1974 to 1990, the United States government was purchasing massive amounts of butter, cheese, and other dairy products and storing them in a warehouse in Madison, Wisconsin. That warehouse by 1991 would contain approximately 330 million pounds or 149 million kilograms of various dairy products. Right up until May 3rd, 1991, when a fire broke out at Central Storage and Warehouse Company warehouse in Madison, Wisconsin at around 3:30 p.m. where all of that dairy product was stored. The fire quickly spread throughout the warehouse and started to melt the 10 to 15 million pounds of butter that were stored there. As soon as the walls collapsed in the building, it released, this is not water, a wave of butter that rushed out of the building and surrounded the area in approximately 2 to 3 foot deep wave of melted butter. But in addition to the melted butter, it also started to melt the cheese, which began to flow down into the butter as well to make it a sticky, goopy mess that firefighters literally had to wade through in order to be able to fight the fire. The engines that arrived on scene prior to the collapse of the building quickly became stuck in the gooey, buttery mess, and no other trucks could get in, so they couldn't use ladder trucks. They had to send firefighters up to neighboring buildings to then spray water on the building because they couldn't get to the building itself because of how quickly the butter was rushing out. In addition, they couldn't bring fuel trucks in to provide more diesel for the engines to keep their pumps running because they couldn't drive through the butter, so workers had to get 5-gallon containers of diesel and carry them by hand through the butter to the trucks to keep them running. One firefighter reported that when his shift was over working at the butter flood, he had butter in places a guy shouldn't have butter. It would take the Madison Fire Department approximately 20 hours to bring the fire into relative control and nearly 8 days to put the fire out entirely. Now, during the actual fire and butter flood itself, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources showed up to build dams to prevent the liquid butter from going into local ponds and creeks because it can have a similar effect on wildlife as oil spills. Now, after the fire was out, Madison Fire Department had to throw away essentially all of the bunker gear that they used during the actual fire and had several hoses that were completely unusable afterwards. In addition, the area stank for a long time, and specifically one Madison Fire Department stank for years after the fire as they attempted to get the smell of the butter out. But honestly, if there was ever going to be a place for a massive dairy fire and flood, it was absolutely going to be Madison, Wisconsin.